The coin slipped from her fingers and hit the counter with a sound so small it nearly disappeared beneath the hum of the fluorescent lights. But to her, it rang like the closing of a door she would never open again. Sophia Ashford stood behind the counter of Mel's diner at 3 a.m, her feet screaming in her worn sneakers, her lower back a symphony of pain after a double shift that had stretched into something inhuman. The man across from her looked up from his empty coffee cup with eyes so pale they seemed almost silver in the harsh light. His skin was alabaster, his hair white gold and pulled back from a face that belonged in a museum, carved from marble by someone who understood beauty as a weapon. He had ordered nothing but black coffee and sat for 2 hours in the corner booth, perfectly still in a way that made her skin prickle. When he finally approached the register, he patted his pockets with an expression of mild concern and said in a voice like distant thunder, "I appear to be short." The bill was $4.73. He had $4 exactly. Sophia looked at the coin she had just placed on the counter. It was all she had left after paying her mother's latest medical bills, after the landlord had come knocking, after the electricity company had sent their final notice. 73 cents. The exact amount between this strange, beautiful man and his freedom to walk out the door. She should have told him to wash dishes, should have asked for a phone number, a credit card, anything. Instead, she pushed the coin toward him and said, "Consider it covered." His hand froze halfway to his wallet, those pale eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. For a long moment he simply stared at the coin, then at her face, as if memorizing the exact configuration of her features. "You would give me your last coin," he said. Not a question, a statement of fact, delivered with something that might have been wonder. Sophia shrugged, exhaustion making her honest. "It's 73 cents. You needed it more than me." "Did I?" "Must have if you're short." Another long pause. Then he reached out and took the coin, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment. His skin was cool and the touch sent electricity up her arm. He closed his fist around the coin and straightened, all 6 feet and several inches of him suddenly seeming to fill the entire diner. "What is your name?" he asked. "Sophia. Sophia Ashford." He repeated it slowly, tasting each syllable. "Sophia Ashford." Then he turned and walked toward the door, moving with a predator's grace that seemed wrong for a human body. At the threshold he paused and looked back. "I am Draeven Lucian," he said, "and I will remember this." Then he was gone, disappearing into the pre-dawn darkness like smoke. Sophia stood there for a long time, her heart doing something complicated in her chest, before she realized she had just fallen in love with a stranger she would never see again. The feeling was absurd, impossible, and yet it sat in her chest like a coal, burning steady and sure. She went back to wiping down tables, and when her shift finally ended an hour later, she walked home through streets that seemed emptier than usual, as if something had shifted in the world while she wasn't looking. 3 nights later, a man in an expensive suit came into the diner during her evening shift and asked for Sophia Ashford by name. She approached his booth cautiously, noting the way the other waitresses whispered and stared. The man stood when she arrived, a gesture so formal it felt like it belonged to another century. "Miss Ashford," he said, "my name is Cassius. I come on behalf of Lord Draeven Lucian, who wishes to express his gratitude for your kindness." He placed a black box on the table between them. Sophia stared at it. "I don't understand." "Please, open it." Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in black velvet, was a necklace of diamonds and rubies that caught the light and threw it back in 1,000 crimson sparks. The price tag, had there been one, would have fed her for a year, maybe 2. "I can't accept this," she said immediately, closing the box with a snap. Cassius's eyebrows rose. "Lord Lucian was quite insistent." "Then Lord Lucian doesn't understand how this works." She pushed the box back across the table. "I didn't give him that coin so he would pay me back. I gave it to him because he needed it. This," she gestured at the box, "this erases the whole point. Miss Ashford, please tell your Lord Lucian thank you, but no, and that he doesn't owe me anything." She walked away before Cassius could respond, her heart pounding, unsure why she felt so angry. The necklace sat on the table for the rest of her shift, gleaming like an accusation, until Cassius finally retrieved it and left without another word. The next night, There were flowers. Not a bouquet, but a garden's worth, delivered by a small army of men in suits who transformed the diner into something from a fairy tale. Orchids and roses and flowers she couldn't name, all of them achingly beautiful and absolutely wrong. Sophia asked them to take the flowers to the hospital, to the children's ward. She kept one rose, a white one, and pressed it between the pages of the paperback novel she kept in her locker. She didn't know why. The small act felt like keeping a piece of a dream she couldn't quite remember. On the third night, Draven himself appeared. She was taking an order from a table of truckers when the diner went quiet. That kind of absolute silence that meant something was wrong, or something was very, very right. She turned and saw him standing just inside the door, tall and pale and otherworldly in the harsh fluorescent light. He wore black, simple and expensive, and his white gold hair caught the light like a halo. Every eye in the diner was on him. He crossed the room to her in 3 strides. "You refused my gifts," he said without preamble. Sophia's mouth went dry. "I did." "Why?" "Because I don't need to be paid back. That's not how generosity works." His jaw tightened. "I'm not accustomed to leaving debts unpaid." "It's not a debt, it was a gift, freely given. Nothing is free." "Maybe not in your world," she surprised herself with her boldness, "but in mine sometimes people just help each other. No strings, no ledgers." He stared at her for a long moment, those pale eyes searching her face. "Your world," he repeated slowly. "You have no idea what world I come from." "No," she agreed. "I don't. But I'm guessing it's one where 73 cents doesn't mean much." "It means nothing." "Exactly. To you it's nothing. To me, it was everything I had." She took a breath. "And I gave it to you anyway. Not because I expected anything back, but because you needed it more than me in that moment. That's all." Draven was silent for several heartbeats. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "You gave me everything you had for a stranger. It was just 73 cents. It was the principle of the thing." He stepped closer and she caught his scent, something like winter pine and old books. "No one has given me anything in a very long time, Sophia Ashford. Certainly not something that cost them everything." Her name on his lips did something to her insides. "What do you want?" she asked, and meant it in every possible way. "To understand." He gestured around the diner. "This? You? Why someone who has nothing would give their last coin to someone they believed had more?" "Because you needed it to leave," she said simply. "And everyone deserves to be able to leave when they're ready." Something flickered across his face, too fast to read. "Have dinner with me," he said abruptly, not as repayment, as, he seemed to struggle for the word, as companionship. "I find myself wanting to know more about a woman who would impoverish herself for a stranger's convenience." Sophia's heart kicked against her ribs. "I'm working." "When you're not working." "I'm always working." "Then I will buy your time from this establishment." He said it with the casual confidence of someone for whom money was no object. "That's not—" she started, then stopped. Looked at him, really looked at him, saw something beneath the aristocratic features and the impossible beauty. Loneliness, maybe. Or curiosity. Or something else she couldn't name. "Tomorrow," she heard herself say. "I have tomorrow night off." The smile that crossed his face was small but genuine. "Tomorrow, then. I will collect you at 8. You don't know where I live." That smile widened slightly. "I will find you." Then he turned and left, leaving Sophia standing in the middle of the diner with her heart racing and her co-workers staring at her with undisguised envy and curiosity. She went back to work, but her mind was elsewhere, circling around the pale stranger with the thunder voice and the strange old-fashioned manners. That night, she dreamed of winter forests and castles of ice, and a man with silver eyes who called her name like a prayer. He arrived at her apartment building at precisely 8 o'clock, pulling up in a car that looked like it cost more than her entire life. Sophia had agonized over what to wear, finally settling on her one good dress, a simple black thing she usually reserved for funerals. She felt shabby next to Draven's expensive elegance, but when he saw her, his expression shifted into something that looked almost like reverence. "You look lovely," he said, and she believed him. The restaurant he took her to didn't have prices on the menu. That should have made her uncomfortable, but Draven ordered for both of them with quiet authority. and when the food came, it was the best thing she had ever tasted. They talked as they ate, or rather, Sophia talked, and Draven listened with an intensity that made her feel like she was the only person in the world. She told him about her mother's illness, the medical bills that never stopped coming, the way she had dropped out of college after her father died to take care of things. She told him about the diner, the regulars she loved, the ones she tolerated. She told him about the dreams she used to have before life got in the way. He absorbed it all in silence, asking occasional questions that were always exactly right, that drew out pieces of her she hadn't meant to share. "And you?" she asked finally. "What do you do, Draeven Lucian?" A pause. "I manage certain interests, inherited wealth, properties." "That's deliberately vague." "It is." "Why?" "Because the truth would sound insane, and I find I do not wish for you to think me insane." Sophia leaned forward. "Try me." He studied her for a long moment. Then he said very quietly, "I am old, Sophia, older than this city, older than this country, and I am not human." Her first instinct was to laugh, but something in his face stopped her. He was utterly serious. "What are you then?" "The stories call my kind many things, vampire, Nosferatu, Strigoi." He said the words without inflection. "I call myself what I am, a vampire, a very old one, and a king, though my kingdom exists in shadows and you would never see it walking through your streets." Sophia sat back. Her mind raced through possibilities. He was crazy. He was playing some elaborate joke. He was telling the truth. That last one should have been impossible. But looking at him in the candlelight, at skin too pale to be natural, at eyes that reflected light like an animal's, at the way he had barely touched his food all evening, she found herself believing. "Prove it," she said. Draven's expression shifted into something almost like respect. "Most would run." "I'm not most people." "Prove it." He glanced around the restaurant, then leaned forward. When he spoke again, his voice was pitched so low only she could hear, but it resonated in her chest like a bass drum. "I could tell you that I remember when this city was marshland and scattered farms. I could tell you that I have not seen the sun in 300 years. I could show you things that would convince you, but we are in public, and I would not risk your safety or reputation." He paused. "But I can tell you this. The coin you gave me 3 nights ago sits in my private vault, beneath my home, on a pedestal like a crown jewel. I have kingdoms worth of wealth, Sophia Ashford, and I treasure your 73-cent coin above all of it, because it was given freely, without agenda, by someone who could not afford to give it away." Sophia's breath caught. "That's insane." "Yes." "You're a vampire." "Yes." "A vampire king." "The vampire king. There are others who claim the title, but I am the eldest, and my word is law among our kind in this city and 1,000 miles beyond." She should have been terrified, should have run screaming. Instead, she felt a strange calm settle over her. "Why tell me?" "Because you asked, and because I find I cannot lie to you." His pale eyes held hers. "And because I want you to understand what I'm offering." "You haven't offered anything." "Not yet." He reached across the table and took her hand. His skin was cool, but not unpleasantly so. "I want to see you again, Sophia. And again after that. I want to understand how someone like you exists in a world as brutal as ours. I want—" He stopped, seemed to struggle. "I want things I have not wanted in a very long time." Her heart was doing that complicated thing again. "I'm just a waitress. You are everything." He said it with such conviction that she almost believed him. They talked until the restaurant closed, and then Draven drove her home through empty streets, and when they arrived at her building, he walked her to her door like a gentleman from another age. At her threshold, he took her hand and pressed it to his lips, a gesture that should have felt ridiculous, but instead felt like a promise. "May I see you again?" he asked. "Yes," Sophia said, and meant it with her whole heart. Over the next weeks, Draven became a fixture in her life. He appeared at the diner during her shifts, sitting in his corner booth with a cup of coffee he never drank, just watching her work. He took her to places she had never imagined, restaurants and theaters, and once, memorably, a private concert in a mansion that felt like stepping back in time. He was careful with her, she noticed, always asking permission, always making sure she was comfortable. He never pushed, never assumed, and slowly, so slowly she barely noticed it happening, Sophia fell the rest of the way in love with him. She learned about his world in pieces, the vampire court that ruled from beneath the city, ancient and complex and bound by laws older than memory. The territories and bloodlines and political machinations that would have made Machiavelli weep with envy. The way vampires lived in the shadows of human society, feeding carefully, keeping their existence secret, maintaining a balance that benefited both species. Draven ruled this world with absolute authority. She saw it one night when he took her to court, a vast chamber carved from living rock beneath the financial district. Vampires gathered there, dozens of them, all pale and beautiful and dangerous, and when Draven entered, they fell silent and bowed. The weight of their respect was palpable, and Sophia understood for the first time what it meant that this man, this creature, had sat in her diner and asked her to cover his coffee bill. "Why me?" she asked him afterward, standing on the balcony of his home, a penthouse that overlooked the city like a throne. "You could have anyone. Vampire, human, anyone. Why a broke waitress who gave you 73 cents? Draven stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the cool air that surrounded him. "Because you gave me everything you had," he said quietly. "I have been alive for centuries, Sophia. I have amassed wealth beyond counting. I have power, territory, the loyalty of thousands, and all of it is meaningless because it costs me nothing to give." He turned to look at her. "You had nothing, and you gave me your last coin, expecting nothing in return. That is a kind of wealth I have never possessed. That's just decency. No, that is grace." He reached out and cupped her face in his cool hand. "I have been trying to repay you, to balance the scales, because that is all I know. But you keep refusing, and I am beginning to understand why. You gave me something I can never repay, because the value was not in the coin, but in the giving. And I have nothing of equal weight to offer you except—" He stopped, and she saw something like vulnerability cross his face. "Except myself. Everything I am. Everything I have." Sophia's heart hammered. "Draven, I'm in love with you," he said, "deeply, completely, irrevocably. And I want to give you the only thing I have that might equal what you gave me that night. I want to give you my kingdom." The words hung in the air between them, impossible and perfect. "I don't understand," Sophia whispered. "I want you to be my queen, my consort, my equal in all things." He dropped to one knee before her, this ancient king, and looked up at her with those pale silver eyes. "I want to give you everything I am and everything I have, not as repayment, but as gift, freely given, the way you gave me that coin." Sophia's eyes burned with tears. "I'm human. That can be changed if you wish it, or not. I would have you either way for whatever time you choose to give me. Your court would never accept me. My court will accept what I tell them to accept. I don't know anything about ruling vampires. Then we will learn together." He stood, still holding her hands. "I know this is insane. I know I'm asking for something enormous. But you gave me your last coin, Sophia Ashford, and I want to give you my entire kingdom in return. Not because it's equal nothing I have could be equal, but because it's all I have to give." Sophia looked at him, this impossible, beautiful creature who had somehow fallen in love with her, and felt her heart make its decision before her mind caught up. "Yes," she said. "Yes, but—" The "but" was important. She could see it mattered. "But I need to do this right," she continued. "If I'm going to be your queen, I can't just be some human you installed because you love her. I need to earn it. Your court needs to accept me, not because you order them to, but because I prove I belong there." Draven's expression shifted into something that looked like pride. "You wish to prove yourself." "I have to. Otherwise it's just you covering my bill again. A bigger scale, but the same principle. I need to stand on my own." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then we do this properly. I will announce my intention to make you my consort, and you will have time to learn our ways, to meet the court, to prove yourself as you wish. And when you are ready, if you are ready, we will formalize it. And if your court rejects me, they won't. But if they do, then I will make you my queen anyway, and they will learn to live with it, He said it with absolute certainty. But I believe you will win them over, Sophia. You have already won me, and I'm far more difficult. She laughed, and he kissed her, and for a moment everything was perfect. Then reality set in. The court, it turned out, had very strong opinions about their king taking a human consort. Sophia met them formally 1 week later, standing beside Draeven's throne in the great chamber beneath the city. They filled the space, dozens upon dozens of vampires, ancient and young, all of them beautiful and predatory and utterly opposed to her presence. A woman stepped forward from the crowd, tall and regal, with hair like spun gold and eyes like chips of ice. "This is an outrage," she announced, her voice carrying through the chamber. "A human, as our queen? My lord, this is beneath you." Draeven's expression went cold. "Lady Seraphine, I do not recall asking for your opinion. Nevertheless, I give it. We all do." Seraphine gestured to the gathered vampires. "You would elevate this waitress to stand beside you, to rule over us? On what grounds? Because she amuses you? Because she is a passing fancy?" Sophia felt heat rise in her cheeks, but before she could respond, Draeven stood. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "You will show respect," he said quietly, and his voice was winter itself. "Or you will learn why I am king, and you are not." Seraphine paled but held her ground. "My lord, I mean no disrespect to you, but this girl has not earned her place. She knows nothing of our world, our laws, our ways. How can she rule us when she cannot even understand us?" "She understands more than you think," Draeven said. "She understands generosity. She understands grace. She gave me her last coin when she believed I needed it, asking nothing in return. Can any of you say the same?" Silence filled the chamber. "That is what I thought," Draeven continued. "You are wealthy, all of you, ancient and powerful, and not one of you has given me anything in centuries except obedience, which I command, and loyalty, which I enforce. She gave me something freely. She gave me kindness, and I value that above all the power in this room." "Pretty words," another vampire called out, a man with dark hair and cruel eyes. "But kindness does not rule a kingdom. Strength does. Power does. Can she enforce your laws? Can she lead us in conflict? Can she protect the realm?" Sophia stepped forward before Draeven could respond. Her heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "You're right," she said. "I can't do any of those things, not yet. I don't have your strength or your power or your immortality." She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. "But I have something else. I understand what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to be powerless and struggling and invisible, and I'm guessing most of you don't." "And why should that matter to us?" Seraphine demanded. "Because you live in the shadows of human society," Sophia said. "You feed on us, you move among us, you depend on us staying ignorant of your existence, and you can do that because most humans never look too closely at the shadows. But the poor, the desperate, the ones barely surviving, they see everything. They notice when things don't add up. They're the ones who could expose you if they had reason to." She could feel the attention in the room shift, sharpening. "Right now, you have humans living in the city who are one disaster away from total ruin," she continued. "They're angry and scared and looking for someone to blame. And if you're not careful, eventually someone's going to look in the right shadow and see you looking back. But if you have someone in power who understands them, who can help them, who can make sure they're not so desperate that they start asking dangerous questions, well, that's worth something, isn't it?" A murmur ran through the chamber. "You would have us care for humans?" someone asked incredulously. "I would have you care about your own survival," Sophia shot back, "which means caring about the world you live in, all of it, not just the parts that serve you." Draeven was watching her with an expression that made her chest ache. Pride, she thought, and love. Seraphine stepped forward again. "Fine words," she said coldly. "But words are easy. Prove it. Show us you are worthy to stand beside our king." "How?" "Win us over." Seraphine smiled, and it was not kind. "You claim to understand humans, to know how to help them. Then do so. Show us this wisdom you claim to possess. Improve the lives of the humans in this city in some meaningful way, using our resources if you must, and if you succeed, if you truly prove your value, then perhaps we will accept you." It was a test, an impossible one, designed to make her fail. Sophia could see it in the vampire's cold smile, in the way the others watched her with barely concealed contempt. But she had spent her whole life facing impossible odds. "Done," she said. "Give me 3 months." Seraphine's smile widened. "You have 2. Then I better get started." The meeting ended shortly after, and Draven escorted her from the chamber with a hand on her lower back. Once they were alone, he pulled her into his arms. "You were magnificent," he said quietly. "I was terrified." "You didn't show it." He kissed her forehead. "But you don't have to do this. I will make you my queen regardless of their approval." "I know, but I need to do this anyway." She pulled back to look at him. "Not for them. For me. I need to know I earned it." He studied her face for a long moment. "Very well. Then I will help you in any way I can." "Actually," Sophia said slowly, an idea forming, "I need you to help me by staying out of it. If you're involved, they'll say you did all the work and I just took credit. I need to do this myself." Draven's jaw tightened. "I do not like the idea of you facing them alone." "I'm not facing them. I'm facing the city. And I've been doing that my whole life." She touched his face. "Trust me." "I do. With everything." That night, Sophia went home to her tiny apartment and started making lists. She had 2 months to prove herself to an audience of immortal predators who wanted her to fail. No pressure. She started by going back to what she knew: the diner, the streets, the people invisible to everyone who had power. She talked to the homeless, to the struggling families, to the single mothers working 3 jobs. She listened to their stories, their needs, their desperation. And then she went to Draven's second in command, a vampire named Cassius who she had met before, and asked for a meeting with his financial advisors. "I need to know everything about the kingdom's resources," she told them. "Property, investments, cash reserves, all of it." They looked at her like she was insane, but Draven had clearly given orders because they provided the information. And when Sophia saw the numbers, she understood for the first time the sheer scale of what Vampire King meant. Draven could have bought the city 10 times over and still had change. She built her plan carefully. The kingdom owned dozens of properties throughout the city, many of them sitting empty. She proposed converting them into shelters, but not the grim institutional kind. Real places with privacy and dignity and resources to help people get back on their feet. Job training, child care, medical care. "It's an enormous expense," one of the advisors protested. "It's a tiny fraction of what you bring in every year," Sophia countered, "and think of it as insurance. Happy, stable humans are less likely to cause problems. Desperate ones are dangerous. This makes everyone safer." She went to the businesses the kingdom owned or influenced and negotiated job placements for her shelter residents. She contacted the hospitals and set up clinics. She found lawyers willing to help with legal troubles, therapists to address trauma, teachers to provide education. It was exhausting, endless work. She barely slept, running between meetings and site visits and the diner shifts she still couldn't afford to give up. Draven wanted to help. She could see it in his eyes every time they met, but he held himself back, letting her do this on her own terms. 6 weeks in, she had 3 shelters operational and a 4th under construction. The results were already visible. Families moving off the streets, people finding jobs. The local news picked up the story, praising the anonymous philanthropist behind the initiative. 7 weeks in, Lady Seraphine showed up at one of the shelter sites. Sophia was in the middle of helping a young mother fill out job applications when the vampire arrived, sweeping into the common room like an ice queen. Everyone except Sophia backed away instinctively, sensing the predator beneath the beauty. "Lady Seraphine," Sophia said calmly, "what brings you here?" "Curiosity." Seraphine looked around the room with undisguised disdain. "This is your grand plan, charity?" "It's not charity, it's investment." "In what?" "In people, in stability, in a city that doesn't tear itself apart from the bottom up." Sophia stood. "You wanted me to prove I could improve human lives. I'm doing that. You're playing with the king's money like a child with a toy. I'm using resources that were sitting idle to solve problems that threatened everyone." Sophia kept her voice level. "Every person I help is one less person looking for someone to blame when their life falls apart. One less person who might stumble onto something they shouldn't see. One less potential risk to your secrecy." Seraphine's eyes narrowed. You think very practically for someone who claims to care about these humans. I do care about them. That's why I want to help them. But I also understand that you need practical reasons to support this, and I'm giving them to you. Sophia met the vampire's cold gaze. I'm not asking you to become human. I'm asking you to be smart about the world you live in. For a long moment, Seraphine was silent. Then she said, very quietly, You are not what I expected. Good, because I'm not trying to meet your expectations. I'm trying to exceed them. The vampire smiled, and for the first time, it looked almost genuine. Perhaps you will. She turned to leave, then paused. The court meets in 2 weeks to render judgment on your worthiness. Do not disappoint us, little human. Then she was gone, leaving Sophia's heart racing and her mind spinning. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Sophia opened the 4th shelter ahead of schedule and began work on a 5th. The news coverage intensified, and politicians started taking notice, claiming credit and promising support. Sophia let them. She didn't need recognition, she needed results. Draven came to her apartment the night before the court meeting and found her surrounded by papers, half asleep at her table. You need to rest, he said gently, gathering the documents. I need to make sure I didn't miss anything. Sophia. He pulled her to her feet and into his arms. You have done more in 2 months than most accomplish in years. You have proven yourself 100 times over. Have I? She leaned into him, exhausted. Or have I just proven I can spend your money? You have proven that you understand power is not about hoarding resources but using them wisely. You have proven that you see people others overlook. You have proven that you deserve to stand beside me, not because I love you, though I do, but because you have the wisdom and compassion to lead. He tilted her face up to his. You have proven everything. Now, rest. She let him carry her to bed, and she fell asleep in his arms, feeling safe for the first time in weeks. The court chamber was packed when they arrived the next evening. Every vampire in the kingdom seemed to have turned out for the judgment. Sophia wore a simple dress, dark blue and elegant but not showy, and walked to stand before the throne with her head high. Draven took his seat, and the chamber fell silent. Lady Seraphine stepped forward. We are gathered to render judgment on the worthiness of the human Sophia Ashford to stand as consort to our king. 2 months ago, we challenged her to prove her value. Tonight, we assess whether she succeeded. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Bam! I have reviewed her work, Seraphine continued. She has established 4 shelters throughout the city, providing housing and resources to approximately 200 humans previously living in desperate circumstances. She has negotiated job placements for 73 individuals. She has arranged medical care, legal assistance, and educational opportunities. The cost to the kingdom has been substantial but not excessive, and the returns, both in public goodwill and reduced risk to our secrecy, are measurable. Seraphine paused, and her cold eyes found Sophia's. More impressively, she accomplished this without leveraging her relationship with our king. Every business owner, every official, every resource provider dealt with her as an individual, not as the king's favorite. She earned their cooperation through competence and conviction. Sophia's heart hammered. Furthermore, Seraphine said, she has demonstrated an understanding of our needs that few humans possess. She sees the practical value in compassion, the strategic importance of stability. She thinks not in terms of immediate gratification, but long-term sustainability. The vampire's expression softened almost imperceptibly. She gave our king her last coin, expecting nothing in return, and she has given this city something equally valuable, expecting nothing except the opportunity to prove herself worthy. In both cases, she has demonstrated a generosity of spirit that is rare. Seraphine turned to face the court. I believe she has proven herself. I vote to accept Sophia Ashford as our king's consort and our queen. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. One by one, other vampires stepped forward to voice their opinions. Some remained opposed, clinging to old prejudices. But more, far more, spoke in Sophia's favor. They cited her work, her intelligence, her courage in facing their hostility with grace. When the last voice fell silent, Draven stood. The court has spoken. By majority consensus, Sophia Ashford is deemed worthy to stand beside me as queen of our realm. His voice carried absolute authority. Does anyone wish to formally challenge this judgment? Silence. Then it is settled. Draven stepped down from his throne and crossed to where Sophia stood, her eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall. He took her hands in his. Sophia Ashford, you gave me everything you had, asking nothing in return. I wish to give you everything I have, freely and without reservation. Will you accept my kingdom? Will you accept my heart? Will you stand beside me, not as subject but as equal, for as long as you choose to remain? Sophia's voice shook, but her words were clear. Yes, yes to all of it, but, Draven's eyebrow rose. But I want to be turned, she said. If I'm going to rule with you, I want to do it as a vampire. I want to be your equal in every way. I want forever, not just a human lifetime. Something blazed in Draven's eyes. You understand what that means, what you'll give up? Sunlight, mortality, humanity in some ways. She squeezed his hands. But I'll gain you. And time. And the chance to keep helping people for centuries instead of decades. So yes, I understand. And I want it. Draven pulled her close and kissed her, deep and claiming, in front of the entire court. When he pulled back, his voice was rough with emotion. Then we do this properly. Tonight, I will turn you, and tomorrow we will formalize our union before the court, and the day after that, you will take your place beside me as queen. Can I make one request? Sophia asked. Anything. Let my first official act be to expand the shelter program. Make it law that the kingdom maintains resources for humans in need permanently, not as charity, but as policy. Draven smiled, and it was full of pride and love. Consider it done. That night, in Draven's private chambers, Sophia sat on the edge of his bed while he knelt before her. This will hurt, he warned, and then it will feel like dying, because you will be. But I will be with you through all of it, and when you wake, you will be immortal. You will be powerful. You will be mine, and I will be yours, for as long as this world turns. I'm ready, Sophia said, and meant it. Draven's fangs extended, elegant and deadly, and he lowered his head to her throat. The pain was sharp and bright, and then there was a strange pulling sensation, as if something essential was being drawn out of her. Her vision blurred, her heartbeat slowed. Distantly, she felt Draven gather her close, felt him bite his own wrist and press it to her lips. Drink, he commanded, and she did. The blood was cool and tasted like metal and midnight and power. It slid down her throat like liquid moonlight, and she felt it spread through her body, changing her at some fundamental level. Her heart stuttered, skipped, stopped. For a moment there was nothing, no sensation, no thought, no existence. Then her heart beat again, once, twice, a new rhythm, slower and stronger than before. Her eyes opened, and the world looked different, sharper, clearer. She could hear everything, the whisper of air through the vents, the rustle of fabric, the sound of something blood, she realized, moving through veins somewhere far away. Draven's face swam into focus above her, pale and beautiful, and filled with an emotion so intense it made her ache. "Welcome back," he whispered. Sophia sat up slowly, marveling at the way her body moved, fluid and powerful. She looked at her hands and saw skin paler than before, perfect and smooth. She touched her tongue to her teeth and felt the sharp points of new fangs. "I'm a vampire," she said, and laughed, the sound bright and strange to her new ears. "You are." Draven pulled her into his arms. "My vampire, my queen, my love." They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other while Sophia adjusted to her new existence. Eventually, she pulled back and looked at him. "Show me," she said. "Show me everything. I want to know this world. I'm going to help you rule." Draven smiled and led her to the window. They stood together looking out over the city, and he told her about the kingdom, about the territories and the bloodlines and the laws that governed their kind. He told her about the challenges ahead, the enemies they faced, the delicate balance they maintained with the human world. And Sophia listened and planned and began to understand the full scope of what she had agreed to. The formalization ceremony happened the next evening in the great chamber. The court gathered again, but this time the atmosphere was different, respectful, even celebratory. Sophia wore a gown of deep crimson, and her white hair, newly turned, fell in waves down her back. She looked every inch a vampire queen, and when she walked to Draven's side, the court bowed. The ceremony itself was ancient, conducted in a language Sophia didn't yet understand but would learn. Draven spoke vows that bound him to her, not through law but through choice, offering her his loyalty, his protection, his kingdom. Sophia repeated the same vows back, her voice steady and sure. When it was done, Draven placed a crown on her head, simple and elegant, wrought from silver and set with a single dark ruby. "Queen Sophia Ashford Lucian," he announced to the court, "my equal in all things, let any who doubt her authority answer to me." The court bowed deeper, and Sophia felt the weight of their acceptance, their respect. She had earned this, not through Draven's favor, but through her own efforts. The celebration afterward was elaborate, but Sophia's mind was already on the next day, on the work ahead. She found Lady Seraphine near the end of the evening and approached her carefully. "Thank you," Sophia said, "for giving me a chance to prove myself." Seraphine regarded her coolly. "I did not do it for your benefit. I did it because I believed you would fail, and that failure would end this foolishness. But I didn't fail." "No," the vampire's expression shifted slightly. "You did not. You exceeded every expectation, and you have made me question assumptions I have held for centuries. That is unsettling, but also valuable." She inclined her head slightly. "You will be a good queen, I think, perhaps even a great one. Try not to prove me wrong." "I'll do my best," Sophia said, and meant it. The next morning, Sophia stood in the throne room beside Draven and issued her first official decree as queen. The shelter program would be expanded and made permanent, funded in perpetuity by the kingdom's resources. A portion of the realm's wealth would be set aside for humanitarian efforts, administered by a council that included both vampires and carefully vetted humans. "We live in the shadows," Sophia told the assembled court, "but that doesn't mean we have to live only for ourselves. The healthier and happier the human world, the safer we are. This isn't charity, it's survival, and it's the right thing to do." The decree passed unanimously, and Sophia felt something settle in her chest. Purpose, direction, a sense that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Over the following months, Sophia threw herself into her new role. She learned the laws and customs of vampire society, studied the history and politics, trained in the powers her new form granted her. She was fast, strong, nearly indestructible. She could move through shadows and compel humans with a glance, but the power she valued most was the authority that came with her crown. She expanded the shelter program to other cities where the kingdom had influence. She negotiated with other vampire lords, using her unique perspective to broker agreements that benefited everyone. She became known among their kind as the Queen Who Gave, a title she wore with pride. And through it all, Draven was beside her, her partner in every sense, supporting her decisions, trusting her judgment, loving her with an intensity that never diminished. They ruled together, truly equal, and the kingdom prospered under their joint leadership. 1 year after Sophia had given Draven her last coin, she stood with him on the balcony of their home, looking out over the city. They had just returned from opening the 10th shelter, and Sophia's heart was full. "Do you ever regret it?" Draven asked quietly. "Giving up your humanity? Your mortality?" Sophia considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss the sun," she admitted, "and I miss my mother, though we arrange things so she's cared for." She turned to look at him. "But no, I don't regret it. This life, this purpose, it's worth everything I gave up." Draven pulled her close. "I spent 3 centuries collecting wealth and power, and none of it meant anything until you gave me 73 cents. You taught me the difference between having everything and having something that matters." "You gave me your kingdom," Sophia said, echoing the words he had spoken so long ago. "And you gave me a reason to value it," Draven replied. He kissed her, slow and deep and perfect. "I love you, Sophia Ashford Lucian, my queen, my equal, my heart." I love you too, she whispered against his lips. My king, my partner, my forever. They stood there together as the night deepened around them, two figures against the darkness, and in the city below, in the shelters and streets and hidden places, people lived better lives because a waitress had once given her last coin to a stranger who needed it. The gesture had been small, but its ripples spread outward in ways neither could have imagined, changing not just two lives but thousands, proving that the most powerful gifts are not the ones we give from abundance, but the ones we give from scarcity, freely, and without expectation of return. Sophia had given Draven everything she had, and he had given her everything in return, not as payment, but as promise. And together they built something that would last for centuries, a kingdom where power served compassion, where strength protected the vulnerable, where a coin's worth of kindness had transformed into a realm of grace. In the vault beneath their home, on a pedestal of black marble, a single coin sat in a place of honor, 73 cents, the most valuable treasure in a kingdom worth billions. And every time Sophia saw it, she remembered the night she had given it away, never knowing it would change everything. That was the nature of true generosity. You gave because it was right, not because it would be rewarded. But sometimes the universe rewarded you anyway, in ways beyond imagination. And sometimes a vampire king fell in love with a waitress's kindness, and together they built a kingdom founded on the principle that the greatest wealth was not what you hoarded, but what you gave away. Years passed, then decades, and Sophia never tired of her work. She expanded the programs throughout the continent, established schools and hospitals and community centers in the kingdom's name. She became a legend among both vampires and humans, the queen who had started with nothing and changed everything. Draven ruled beside her, his steady strength the foundation on which she built her dreams. They complemented each other perfectly, his ancient wisdom balanced by her fresh perspective, his authority backed by her compassion. Together, they were unstoppable. The court that had once questioned her now revered her. Lady Seraphine became her closest advisor, the two women forging an unlikely friendship based on mutual respect. Other vampire lords sought Sophia's counsel, recognizing in her a kind of power that had nothing to do with strength or magic and everything to do with vision. But no matter how far their influence spread or how great their accomplishments, Sophia never forgot where she had started. Once a month, she returned to the diner where she had worked, now under new management but still serving coffee to people at 3 a.m. She would sit in Draven's old booth, and they would talk about the early days, remembering the moment that had changed everything. "Did you know?" she asked him once. "That night when you came to the diner and pretended to be short for your bill. Did you know I would give you the coin?" Draven was silent for a moment. "No," he said finally. "I came there testing myself, not you. I wanted to see if I could still remember what it felt like to need something, to be vulnerable." He looked at her. "I never expected you to give me anything. And when you did, when you gave me everything you had without hesitation, you undid me completely. I knew in that moment that I would love you forever, even though I didn't yet know what that meant." "I fell in love with you that night too," Sophia confessed, "before I knew what you were, before I knew about any of this. I looked at you and felt something I'd never felt before." "What did you feel?" "Recognition," she said, "like I'd been waiting my whole life for you to walk through that door." Draven reached across the table and took her hand. His skin was still cool, hers now matching. "Then we were always meant for this, for each other, for all of it." "Maybe," Sophia said, "or maybe we were just lucky. Either way, I'm grateful." They sat there in the diner as dawn approached, knowing they would need to leave soon before the sun rose. But for now, in this moment, they were just two people in love, remembering the beginning of their story. Outside, the city was waking up. People were starting their days, going to jobs they hated, struggling with bills they couldn't pay, living lives of quiet desperation. But more now than before, were finding help when they needed it, shelter when they had none, hope when they were at their lowest. Because a waitress had given her last coin to a stranger, and the stranger had given her his kingdom, and together they had changed the world. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better than that. It was real, built on choices and work and love that had been tested and proven true. And it would last as long as they did, which, being immortal, was forever. In the vault beneath their home, a coin gleamed in the darkness, 73 cents, the foundation of an empire, the seed from which a kingdom grew. And in the throne room of that kingdom, 2 crowns sat side by side, equal in glory, bound together by something far stronger than law or tradition or blood. They were bound by a choice made in a diner at 3 in the morning, by a moment of pure generosity, by a love that had grown from the smallest of seeds into something vast and enduring. Sophia had given her last coin. Draven had given his entire kingdom. And in the giving and receiving, they had found something neither had possessed before, a partnership of perfect balance, a love of absolute equals, a future without end. That was the real magic, Sophia sometimes thought, not the vampire powers or the immortality or the wealth. The magic was in the giving, in the trust, in the willingness to offer everything you had and know that it would be treasured. She had given Draven 73 cents, and he had understood its true value. He had offered her his kingdom, and she had seen it not as a prize to be claimed, but as a responsibility to be earned. And together they had built something beautiful from those small beginnings. Sometimes people asked Sophia what advice she would give to someone who wanted to change their life. She always gave the same answer: give freely. Not because you expect return, but because generosity creates ripples you can't predict. Be kind, especially when it costs you. And if someone offers you their kingdom, make sure you deserve it before you accept. And then she would smile and add, but also, sometimes it's okay to accept gifts. Just make sure you give something back that matters. Not wealth or power, but purpose. Not things, but meaning. That's the real exchange. Draven, hearing her say this once at a gathering of vampire lords and human dignitaries, had added his own wisdom. And if you find someone who gives their last coin to a stranger, never let them go. That kind of generosity is rarer than any treasure. The gathered crowd had applauded, and Sophia had looked at her king, her husband, her partner in all things, and felt her heart overflow with love. This was their story: a waitress and a king, a coin and a kingdom, a moment of kindness that became a legend, a small gift that grew into an empire. And it all started with 73 cents and the willingness to give it away. Years became decades, became centuries, and still Sophia and Draven ruled together, their love never diminishing, their purpose never wavering. They watched the world change around them, adapting their kingdom to meet new challenges, always remembering the lesson of that first night. The greatest power was not in what you kept, but in what you gave away. The coin stayed in the vault, a reminder and a promise. And above it, in the world they had built together, people lived and loved and survived because 2 immortals had learned the value of a single moment of grace. That was the true gift. Not the kingdom or the crown or the centuries together. The gift was understanding that everything worth having started with someone choosing to give when they had every reason to keep. Sophia had given her last coin, and in return, she had received not just a kingdom, but a love that would last forever, a purpose that gave meaning to immortality, and a partner who understood that the smallest gestures could change the world. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. And in the end, that was all anyone needed. Love, purpose, and the memory of a moment when everything changed because someone chose kindness over caution, generosity over self-preservation, grace over fear. 73 cents, the cost of a coffee bill, the price of forever, the foundation of a love story that would echo through eternity. And it all began in a diner at 3 in the morning, with a tired waitress and a vampire king, and a choice that neither of them could have known would change everything. But it did. And they lived forever in the world they built from that choice, grateful every day for the coin that had brought them together and the love that kept them there. Together, equal, forever, the way it was always meant to be.